Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. The following is a discussion that I did with my friend Zachary Marlow from Moneyless Society, where we talk about movement building. How do we achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve in moving to a world beyond capitalism? And how do we avoid the pitfalls and shortcomings that other movements in the past have fallen victim to? A lot of good content in this video, mostly from my friend Zach, and I hope you guys enjoyed the content, and I hope it provides some value to your overall understandings of, well, how do we move to a world beyond capitalism? Without further ado, I hope you enjoy the video. Peace.
Today's video is sponsored by Jacques. Well, Arjun, what are we doing, man? What the hell is going on in the world right now? Everything is going to shit. All the problems are coming together. So really what we need to do as activists, as people who recognize problems, we need to come together. We need to form a unified movement. That's really what we need. That's really what we're here to talk about today, is creating an actual movement, because we don't have one. When people talk about our movement this, our movement that, we don't have a movement. There's no hand that's opposing the fist of capitalism. We don't have a cohesive, coherent, effective movement that's making gains and changes. And I think that's, maybe people who are working tirelessly to do something in their lane, I don't want to dismiss them. I think that there's so much great work going on in the world right now. And I used to think not enough people get it, and that's our excuse. And until enough people do get it, enough people get it. We're just not, there's just not, we have, there's two things. You have a heap, which is a bunch of things mixed together that don't cohere, that don't mix. And then you have a system. All parts are connected. When you touch one, it affects everything. It forms a cohesive whole. And that's really what we need to create. So you have a lot to say about this. I have a lot to say about this. So I think it'd be great if you go first and blow this up, set them up, and then
Yeah.
we'll knock them down.
The way that capitalism defends and protects itself is almost like the system has a life of its own. Any kind of external force, such as activism, that seeks to change the internal mechanics of capitalism to make it more sustainable, less problem producing, any kind of force that tries to do that gets swept up within the system and becomes contained and part of its own mess. If that makes any sense, like people think they're making a difference when in reality they're simply like turning the same exact wheels and not addressing the actual root cause mechanisms. And because of the fact that we live in a society which is based on individual self-perpetuation, which means everyone has to fight for their own survival, financial survival, whatever, what have you. Because of that factor, a lot of activist organizations and activist momentums simply become another business. If business is the actual problem, you can't make a business out of trying to save the world. Sure, everybody needs to make money, but when you start making money out of your activist ventures, there is a great gravitation towards corruption and change and basically restructuring the way you think, where you don't become you're not as radical as you used to be anymore, because now you're making money, making profit, you have an establishment to preserve, and hey, there we go. You become part of the problem, so what we're trying to do is do something different than that. Like the Zeitgeist Movement, the Moneyless Society, the Venus Project, these different organizations are simply trying to do something completely from outside the box, and bring about true relevant change, which is basically taking apart market characteristics, market capitalist characteristics, and changing it towards a more sustainable avenue, using science and technology to design a whole new system, a new way of thinking, new way of living. Um,
Oh, well, I feel like everything you said is so apt, and it's freaky how powerful the money making toxin is in the activist industrial complex. It's an amazing term, because I've worked with so many different activist groups, especially environmental groups. People going out there and making a stink, disrupting things, without any larger systemic goal, who generally don't understand the root causes. And I've been in discussions with people that said I've seen successful actions that garnered a ton of donations. They made a big splash. They got on the news, and a bunch of people made them money. And so that's what they do. They do that again. They say, "Oh, let's do that again. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep going after." In this instance, was Chase Bank again and again and again. Chase Bank, literally, first action I ever went to, we shut down Chase Bank. It was a badass thing. I was amazed. I was like, wow, this is great. This is like this theatrical production. All these people care about these things I care about. But at the end of the action, I looked across the street, Bank of America. We didn't say nothing to them. So it's just like this disconnection, this lack of cohesion, this lack of vision and connectedness, and then the repetitiveness that they kept going after this bank and getting no results and doing the same thing. And it's the same. It's the same in politics. It's the same in the political arenas that I have worked and organized in.
yeah, Absolutely. And like you said, shutting down Chase Bank. Oftentimes, activists are focused on taking down individual players and not addressing the actual causative mechanisms that are driving those behaviors. So you know there's two avenues when it comes to the activist industrial complex. Those who know what they're doing, they're spouting a certain message, but behind the whole message, their actual goal is just to perpetuate an income for themselves and generate a business, which is very dishonest and messed up. People like Alex Jones, for example, using freak show antics and sensationalism to
Goblins.
generate views, goblins, whatever. And then there's those, is even worse than that, is people who actually have good intentions. People are well-intentioned individuals trying to put their work in, trying to make the world a better place. However, they don't realize that they're not questioning the full depth and scope of the issue. So, they're basically being co-opted, basically, and the system, again, the system has its ways of defending itself, and that's through income, through the idea of business and money and profits. Yeah, if the very foundation of our society, which is profits and money and income, is the actual problem, then you can't really solve the issue that we're facing by engaging with those mechanisms, if that makes any sense. A real movement would, at a first level, at the very base level, needs to have um, ideological unification. Okay, we rarely ever have seen a movement throughout history. Okay, even in recent times, like Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, we've rarely ever seen a movement which consists of members who all share the same level of value system orientation and education. So I think at a base level, a movement that seeks to actually bring about relevant, long lasting, positive change, the people in that movement all need to be on the same board, on the same level when it comes to their identification of what the problem is and their level of education in terms of solutions to present. And another foundational premise is staying emergent. Movements need to be emergent, which means staying up to date with the times. Um, if a movement truly aims to be progressive and dignified and have integrity, it must be, it must stay on the pulse of society. Being emergent means constantly adapting to an ever changing world. Far too often, we see movements that romanticize past notions and frame their solutions from within the box, from a within the box narrative. And when it comes to improving society, this is the flaw that many of these movements often face. Communists, socialists, anarchists, they don't keep themselves up to date with their understandings, and they always frame their solutions and the root sourcing to old, past, romanticized notions. If communists were truly emergent, they would see that in the 21st century, we have to stop obsessing over the working class and recognize that the power of automation is truly liberating. It's a liberating factor for humanity to remove this drudgery of hard work and actually solve the class struggle once and for all. Another point, another flaw. Almost every movement has fallen into this trap. Once power, momentum, and influence has been generated from within a movement, they tend to want to preserve themselves and any ideas that they have. New progressive and revolutionary ideas come to the forefront that threaten their established viewpoints. Those ideas will be expelled and ignored.
I
Yeah,
call that
if
the
movements,
anti-establishment establishment, and I've seen that just rampant. And they will marginalize anyone who disagrees, who says this is not what we should do, especially if it's what goes against their fundraising strategy. I've seen it again and again and again. Anyone who has a different perspective, they will be passive aggressive first, and then they will ridicule them, and then they will ice them out, and then they'll talk shit behind their back, and they'll just eventually ice them to the point where they want to leave the group.
absolutely. And look, let's make it very. Let's be frank here, man. People need money. People need money in this society to survive. I'm not discounting that. You could have a movement which somehow gets funding from the public. You generate some income to make sure that people who are working within that movement are actually paid to be able to work and stuff and contribute. You can have that. However, at a base level, the movement needs to recognize, hey, we need money right now, but our goal eventually is not to be. We don't want to be a business. We're not here to be a business enterprise. We're here to be an emergent institution that seeks to completely radically shift and remove the establishments of the world. So there's no more establishments in the end. The Zeitgeist Movement is, in my view, one of the ultimate anti-establishment movements. Whereas Once the goals of the Zeitgeist movement are achieved, which is basically arriving at a society that uses technology and science for the betterment of all mankind, removing class hierarchy, removing competition and the market mechanism, and instead replacing that with intelligent feedback systems, which we can go into more. Once those goals are achieved, to optimizing efficiency, optimizing abundance, optimizing all the different factors that are responsible for creating a real economy. When those are established, the Zeitgeist movement, the word Zeitgeist movement means nothing. You can just throw it out. It doesn't mean anything. It's an umbrella term to bring people together for now. And then, once the goals are achieved, again, we don't have to even have the word Zeitgeist movement anymore. That is truly staying humble. That is truly being emergent, because you have to understand, we don't want groups in the end. Tribalism, which goes to my next point. Um, Tribalism is a colossal obstacle that humanity is facing right now. You're a Republican, you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you are, whatever, communist. Whenever you create any kind of label, you're creating division, you're creating separation, and yeah, it's very problematic. With people being loyal to nation states, from that to religious affiliation to whatever. These are all different ways for us to separate ourselves from one another, from the human family, and it's creating division and conflict. So in the end, there's only one human family. We need to become unified in our values, and create a value system that benefits everybody, not a select group. And for that to happen, the final point I want to talk with before I stop my rambling, so you can get on with your point, is that uh, we need to have leaderless movements. We need to have leaderless movements, or at least movements that consist of those who can do their own research and are constantly vigilant to not fall to bias and elitist thinking. It's never really good to put faith and all power in the hands of a leader of a movement, right? Since that diminishes the power and the ability of the majority of people in that movement, and it diminishes the intellectual and physical contributions of those people, of those members, and it does not encourage every person to do their own work and engage with their own critical faculties. And also, if leaders are taken down, if they're assassinated or removed, um, that tends to really diminish a lot of the momentum that those movements were carrying. So that's why, again, we want a leaderless movement. We want people to be their own leaders, and yeah, we don't want any more in-group out-group bias. The goal should be to eliminate tribalism, which is one of the major issues we're facing as a human species. And yeah.
We're gonna have to install Jacques here as the beneficent overlord, as the only true leader that we can trust. He is the
Absolutely. Hey,
AI.
look,
He is the
hey, I'm all
overlord.
for cats being my dictator, man. I have to, I have no problem with that. That they can do whatever they want. The business mindset is a problem. Okay, business, money, and profits are the problem, really, if you think about it. Because whenever you create a business, you create an establishment that whatever services or resources it provides, whatever it provides, has to come entailed with money. So if you don't have money to buy whatever it is that business is actually offering, you are excluded from having access to that. Whereas, you know, when you don't have a society that's based on business, when you have a society that's based on pursuing abundance and not preserving scarcity, every person is working towards goals of solving problems in a society that's organized on a foundational level and meeting human needs. And that is very different than capitalism, because it claims that, oh, when people are working, when money is being generated, when everything, the GDP is high, human needs are going to be met as a mathematical guarantee, which is like complete opposite of what it claims. Because look at the world around you, full of deprivation, full of scarcity, oppression, and division and conflict. And that is not what the system has produced. So again, a business for it to work cannot be a movement for it to work cannot be a business. And movements eventually need to be moneyless and yeah, resource based, not finance based.
So that's a great point to pick up on, because really what I want to talk about is what we're trying to do at Moneyless Society, which is the organization that we're building to actually eliminate all these issues. Because this is my experience as an activist, as someone involved in politics, as someone who's worked through many different tiers and structures and activist arms and means of dealing with problems, from the spiritual hippie community to, people living on communes, to all kinds of structures and alternatives. That's been my quest, to seek the alternatives, to recognize, okay, this world is fucked and we need to do something about it. What do we do though? And then that's been my journey to discover and understand these things and synthesize them into something that works. That's what
Yeah.
Moneyless Society is working to create in real time. It's not just some mythic end goal or ideal society, but it's just something that we can create that becomes the world that we live in, starting small and ultimately scaling up, building transitional structures that become our life, that become what we put our action into, that form a mutually reinforcing feedback to just outmode everything. How do we design a system that works around the problems of growing up in a capitalist society? Ultimately, we need a new system to transition to the new system. Dual power is a term that was used to describe the transitional process of creating a decentralized alternative system running parallel to the existing behemoth. The Soviets didn't just take to the streets one day and say, we're going to flip the table over. They had highly organized workers' councils all over the country that were synchronized, that were organized, that had each other's back, that were then taken over by the Bolsheviks, who did all the establishment preservation stuff that you just talked about. Any revolution is waged by the people. There's no group of people, there's no singular party, or there's no five people that make a revolution happen. It's people all over the world, all over the country, forming into groups, educating each other, spreading information, spreading awareness, and ultimately it's this rhetorical process of arguing against the existing system, telling people something better is possible. So that happened, and that's what every revolution has been. Essentially has been the people coming together and waking up in this wave that knocks over the existing structure. Whereas in the Soviet Union, the Bolsheviks, the leading intellectuals, some of the leading intellectuals of the time, who were unpopular by many, but popular in other ways, they basically installed themselves as the leaders of this party. And they said, we're going to form this vanguard party that's going to take over, that's going to run things. And eventually we're going to get to a stateless, classless, moneyless society. That's what we all want, right? And of course, the corruptive structures of power and of the mechanisms of hierarchy, of having a few people making decisions disconnected from the feedback of all the people in society saying, we'll make decisions for you. Those structures are inherently corruptive and destroyed that dream of socialism. One of the first things that the Bolsheviks did was end socialism, which is
Hmm.
worker control of the workplace. They never achieved that in the Soviet Union. It was all top down, and that will bring us to really what we're trying to get into, what we're trying to achieve, creating new systems that can actually achieve these
Yep.
ideal goals of past movements. So even activists today that are fighting the system, not just the symptoms, for the most part, actually work and generate value for the capitalist machine 5 days a week. And we will
Absolutely.
stay weekend warriors until we either do crazy shit like quit everything, give up money, and bum around the world like this fucking crazy guy right here, or get wise and collectivize and stop paying $2,000 a month on rent and join together with others like you to split the rent, the rising cost of living, form a housing co-op, get a piece of land and develop it. Somebody's grandmother has some land that they are not using that we could use. Those of you with good jobs, support an activist. Let them stay on your couch and start bringing the people like us who get it but are too overworked to do anything about it into a new system, a new feedback loop where our needs are met and we're able to educate and develop ourselves, that we can create and actually live in this system.
Would you agree that, like, activists are working around the world to bring into awareness other individuals while they're doing that? Yes, if they can create their own communities and create their own forms of self-reliance, maybe their own forms of energy, have their own form of energy, food production, housing, have all those things in set, and demarketize or starve the beast, so to say, by sharing tools, sharing resources with one another. So you don't have to go and buy something from Amazon over and over again. You can share the things you need, and it's a tool library, let's say, right? Just like books are shared, you can have a tools library or a goods library where people within those activist communities have access to those things. They can use them, put them back. And if that starts happening and it starts becoming a trend around the world, that'll be a massive tool to bring about change, because more people will be like, okay, wow, those guys over there, they're not even really using that much money. They're not relying on the system that much. They've weaned themselves off of it. Oh, they have their own energy. Oh, they have their own housing. They have their own food. They have sustainable food production. Oh, and also they don't have to keep buying corporate products they're intentionally designed to break down. Let's say it just hypothetically, they have their own 3D printing machines that they can create their own tools and then restructure those molecules into something else afterwards. And wow, they're happy and they're healthy and they don't have violence in their communities. There's no need for police in their communities. Imagine that. And that can be a very powerful form of transportation, allowing transformation, allowing others to see like, wow, this is actually inspiring. This could actually work. As opposed to, everyone who's saying, oh, you're all just talk. Even though we're not all talk, we know what we can be done, but our hands are tied behind our back. There's only so much we can do. So like, what do you think? For
No, it's exactly what I was just
my
about
two
to get
cents.
into, that we can't just tell people what can be. One of the most crippling effects of capitalist realism, the idea that this is all that exists, is the death of imagination, that we're so entombed in money world that people can't imagine something else. Even though the solutions exist already all over the world in small parts, they just aren't known and connected. But yeah, I mean, until we start building things, we're all talk, and we are just as overworked and burnt out from this shithole system as anyone. So we're doing this on the side ourselves. So why not come together, put our efforts toward building healthy environments for ourselves, bringing in all this advancement of permaculture, renewable energy, natural building styles like earthships, contour crafting, using regenerative materials. We can heal the environment and produce abundance for cheaper than the existing mega machine. We can start saying fuck the man and come together to create cooperatives, actual socialism, worker owned and operated transitional enterprises. The way to get around the hacking of our social nature and the corruption of that is to manage things in a truly collective way. So within our communities, we're not trading with each other. We're not saying I give you this, you give me that. We're done. Fuck that. And we're creating systems with that function that we control in ourselves, that we work together to decide what the money goes toward, the money that we make to produce things, to do things. Yeah, sociocracy is
Okay,
a system
continue.
of creating circles in circles with no bosses, no leaders, by design, not just by saying we shouldn't do this, but it's a really effective, simple, fluid, adaptive, complex system of organization. It's a management system. It's very organized. You get shit done. It's really effective, efficient, smooth, clean, but it is by design and not a hierarchical system where you have bosses and leaders that are ultimately filtering the will of the people. It's a consensus-based system. So instead of like having to stop and vote for issues every now and then as we'll get into with creating new apps, we can streamline that whole process. It's basically a process of consent where people work together fluidly. They take on roles and tasks. There aren't like set roles. You're the fucking shoemaker and you make shoes. It's like if somebody loves making shoes, you make the fucking shoes. You don't need to waste your time, designating that to the shoemaker. That's what Bakunin said. In
Yeah.
matters of shoes, defer to the shoemaker. So when people say, oh, no hierarchy, then who's going to make the things? Who's going to do things specifically? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a power imbalance where someone is making decisions for someone else. So with this sort of
Yeah.
system, you can have flexible hours. You can benevolently integrate technology. The workers in those groups can say, let's use this technology, let's eliminate these jobs, automate it, and eventually merging with other groups like this, other parallel enterprises, into what some people call platform cooperatives. So you say there's a drivers cooperative here in New York City, and it's a bunch of people that own cars and they have a sharing network. And instead of being competitors in this market system, where even if they have their, there's about 400 cooperatives in the United States, not a lot. Uh, but even that is a very radical transformation for people, but it's still not a competition to the market system. The market system can eat that easily. And ultimately, they're still competing with each other, which produces a lot of the perverse incentives in capitalism. So if we can bring together, circles within circles, that's sociocracy, of people providing their needs into larger systems, into collective funding pools, sharing worker pools and supply chains, eventually integrating food, housing, shelter, whatever you produce to start giving to people with universal basic services, not just an income. So we can eventually stop needing money all the time more and more and working for wages altogether, which will make these front facing businesses fucking monstrously cheap because you're not paying people. You don't need to pay people because they have such benefit from what they're doing. They have all the things that they need in life. You don't need to pay them a wage. And so we can actually create a very cheap, abundant, effective business model. What's the quickest way to reach your average Joe? I mean, it's their stomach. So if we're actually creating and assembling our own means of production to meet our needs regeneratively, utilizing automation, open sourcing, sharing what we produce, we can feed people. We can start giving food away. And then they'll ask, who are you? And why are you doing this? That's a much better point than to just walk up to somebody and say, hey, here's this hypothetical world. Give them a plate of food and then talk to them over that. And they'll take you way more fucking seriously. And if we give people the tangible action of joining and coming in and saying, do something, do shit with us to build their own world instead of just complaining about their own other option, then we're gonna be making a lot more progress and movements, and our movements are gonna become more fun, more thriving, cooperative. We have a robust group in our Moneyless Society community. We have a Facebook group with like 20,000 people talking theory, talking about their ideas, asking questions to each other. I post in there all the time, like, "Hey, I'm researching nuclear energy. Like, who's got the skinny on this?" And 20 people will give me amazing information. So it's like, who needs Chat GPT when you have the people, the community? Speaking of food production, J. Edgar Hoover said that the greatest threat to American empire was the Black Panthers' breakfast program. So when we do what the government and corporations refuse to do, just meet human needs unequivocally, there will be no doubting us, and people will really start to believe a better world is possible. I mean, it's not a matter of belief. We don't need to believe. You just need to look and see what's going on. So as the great James Gilligan observed, it isn't the point when everything is at its worst that revolutions happen. It's when things start to slightly improve enough that people start thinking clearly. They're not scrambling to meet their basic needs and put food in their stomach. They can start to really delay gratification and think, hey, wait a minute, things could be better. So all of this is happening around the world in eco-villages, laboratories, mass living alternatives like Rojava, places like Mondragon, the cooperative in Spain. They just aren't well known or connected. Again,
Yeah, and I'm going to
so
be putting a lot of these examples in my channel of people actually who are doing things in isolation here and there, showing little pieces of what can be, right. So we need to give them, shine some light on them, because most people, like you said, they don't know. Somebody living in New York City, in Brooklyn, in some poor neighborhood, he has no idea what's actually happening around the world. What kind of abundance producing potentials exist out there, right. So
and
we definitely,
to
I'm
shout,
going to post a lot of this. Yeah.
I'm trying to shout out a bunch of these in this little spiel, but one of them is the Bridge Eco Village, which is an urban eco village that's like this Professor Xavier, like Charles Xavier University like place. It's this old school, this beautiful old giant brick building that this
Mhm.
group has acquired, and they have solar panels on the roof. They have rooftop gardens. It's a school. It's a food. They've produced their own food. It's a community system. It's housing. It's everything integrated in one. And this is in a fucking. It's like Pittsburgh. They have a few They have a few locations. It's in the middle of these urban jungle where you would never expect like a beautiful, sustainable community to be happening.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So,
I saw the video on that. It's amazing.
so speaking of
And
these
they
other
actually
communities,
mentioned
speaking.
capitalism as the problem, which is freaking awesome.
Oh, they get it. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
they
There's
get it.
tons of people out there
They
who
get it.
fucking get it. Like, we don't have the excuse anymore that only 10 people get it. Like, they're out there. And so
And it's happening. And
one of the biggest
as
things we
if it,
need.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So
Oh, no, go
like
ahead.
I'm a fitness coach, right? If people didn't see success stories of other people getting in shape, nobody would believe that fitness actually does anything for you. Like working out doesn't, exercising and eating good does anything for you. If every person in the world is like out of shape and morbidly obese or has diabetes and really has terminal illness, where's the hope? But when people see success stories of people transforming their bodies and their lives and improving their state of emotions and everything through exercise and through diet, well, then the transformation is possible. The inspiration is provided. So that's what we're trying to pretty much, as an example, show people. Look, the inspiration, you should have inspiration because these things are happening. Be inspired. Things can
And
change.
to make it obvious, to make you don't need a degree in social science to understand it. You just look and see, oh, okay. And you see where you can join in. So, one of the biggest and most important things that we need in terms of this network of all these people exist, but we don't have a network. This is what I've always noticed. And that's really one of the biggest things that we're doing at Moneyless Society, that we have a team, we call it the Technomancers team. We're working on new network systems and applications to organize and connect our efforts. Our little team of a few people is already working on an ecosystem, like mega app of innovative solutions like decentralized organizing tools like voting, ranked choice voting, things like that for internal organizing, resource sharing and mapping issues in nodes, connecting issues, linking problems with roots and solutions locally and globally as a wiki that people can add to and up and down vote. Event that's called Magnova. Look it up, please. It exists. It's already there. We just need people to help build it and users to use it in data. And once we have more data, we can have algorithms to make sense of that data and to take these results and aggregate them for true feedback. So we're creating this network, this mega machine, that not Skynet, but human machine collaboration, making sense of our own interactions. Like, imagine if Twitter, all the data, all the information in Twitter that outweighs every single all the recorded works of man are outweighed by the bullshit on Twitter. Imagine if that human feedback of people saying, I like this movie, I didn't like this movie, I like this, I don't like that I have healthcare, I don't like that capitalism still exists. Like if we had a machine that was making sense of that and forming conclusions based upon that, we would have a very smart pulse of the human organism, of what we think of as a whole.
And that would be an actual participatory democracy. People can input their thoughts, and then answers can be arrived at. Through that process.
That's what we're trying to build here, and that's just the start. What we're doing right now is small pieces of our own platform, which is not just another shit talk app, but a place to find the others and do something about it. All right, so let's go on a little trip here. Imagine, if you will, an economy app, the resource-based economy app that has every user's first fill out two basic tabs: what you have to share, a couch, a car, land, editing skills, a camera, an attic full of swords. I don't know your life. I don't know what you got. And then there's tab two, your needs: a place to live. I need romance. I need a car mechanic. I need a couch. I need anything that could exist on Craigslist and beyond, or marketplace, Facebook marketplace. And then algorithms based on our data that we control with blockchain security protocols bring people together, supply and demand, connecting people and the things they need where they need to go. So it starts being this very fluid process where you don't have to scan through the list of people who have the things you're looking for and search for it. Algorithms are just saying, you post, I'm looking for this. And if there's someone in your area that has it, ping, and it connects you with them. I mean, this is the beginning of a real resource-based economy, is connecting things in a circulation, not exchange. I give you this, you give me that, but a real flowing circular, like energy moving through a map, like water moving down a hill. It's very fluid. It goes where it's needed. It doesn't just go in this one ding, this mercantile system that we use that's fucking hundreds of years old. It makes no fucking sense. So
Yeah,
within
I
this,
often
we
say
can
like how the system really does a great job of separating everyone from each other, divide and conquer. I always think to myself when I'm walking on my way to work, I walk through these poor neighborhoods. I'm like, imagine the good that could be done if these people got together, formed a community instead of being separate from each other, instead of fighting with each other all the time, and calling the cops on each other or whatever. Imagine they just got together and pooled the whatever limited resources they have, just they pulled it together and then worked together. Imagine what they could overcome and what they could do, but they don't. And this, what you're talking about, needs to become a norm of people getting together through apps, whatever it is, to form their own communities, being unified, and not being on their own. Nobody can make it on their own. So, it'd be so powerful if people in local communities start also doing that, getting together and forming coalitions or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it can be as low tech or as high tech as it needs to be. But what I'm trying to lay out here is something that people can just tap into. Like I think about Facebook all the time, and the cell phone. Like all of the boomers were like, "Oh, you kids and your Nintendos addicted to your phone," and then the cell phone came out. The smartphone and Facebook, and all the boomers talk shit. And then within 1 year, every single one of them was addicted to it completely, and it changed the
Yeah,
structure of our society completely.
yeah,
Without a political movement, without building consensus, through technology, through people using a system. And this is what people like Jeremy Rifkin talk about: economic transitions happen on the backs of changes in transportation, energy, and communication. And that's really what we're trying to bring together here into something cohesive and populous, something that the people build and operate, not something that corporations are pointing at us using all this data gathering, this information gathering. If you're afraid of all this data being taken from you, all this technology for these crazy algorithms exist. They're just being used to optimize algorithms to keep you on the app, keeping you pissed off at people, connecting you with the people that they know you're going to argue with. Like, I know fucking Twitter does that to me. It shows me PragerU because it knows I'm going to click and I'm going to say it's going to get me
yep.
pissed. It's just
Send you a
it's
bunch of
market.
garbled noise because all these apps, they're all operating with the false and distorted structural goals, whereas like the apps that we're talking
Yes.
about and the opportunities, that the things we're talking about have proper structural goals as their foundation.
So back into the web, into the network, into the the anti-matrix. So with this, we can have an ever-growing resource library of physical goods that people can add the things that they have into a network that says, this is public, this is in the commons, this isn't mine anymore, this is shared. And you can have these things tracked on a blockchain, not a fucking cryptocurrency, not a monkey picture, but a blockchain, a network that says that there's a corresponding bit to the thing that we have, that's very secure, that this allows us to do extremely advanced and secure accounting, true accounting. And we don't need tokens. We don't need a trade. Algorithmic and human feedback can keep things circulating as they're needed. Again, so
Yeah.
let's add a map feature to this. like the dual power map that my very good friends at Black Socialists in America are building, which can be expanded into an interactive database of all the projects, cooperatives, off-grid communities, urban hubs, places like the Bridge Eco Village that you can find in your area, and where it could just be a group of people that have a meeting group or a book group, whatever it is. It's a map that says it's near you, and it's trying to get you off the fucking internet. So everywhere you have groups of people who are doing a thing, you can join them. And algorithms are helping you find them as they're looking for you as you're looking for them.
All the incredible inventors, all the great social scientists, all the things they've done to contribute and make our lives better. They didn't do it for a return on their investment. They did it because they wanted to help, and because they did it with the uh, mindset that society will give back to everybody what they're contributing. Sadly, because we live in this incredibly oppressive system, whatever somebody's contributed usually becomes hoarded, soaked up right away by corporate interests, and used, weaponized, as a way to empower the market and depower the people. But anyway, sorry to rant on that, but
No, it's
yeah.
we need this. Because this is like world changing, expansive, like, things that don't exist yet. So I'm going to keep adding to this. So each project on this map could list its people, its roles, and its needs, what it's producing. And this allows us to create supply chains locally to go beyond disconnected community or cooperatives into collectives. So everybody is interacting with each other fluidly. Like there's a group of people make up a community, a group of communities can make up a collective, a group of cooperatives can make up a collective. So, and they can also upload what they're growing, and so like farms can upload what they're growing, and the soil conditions and the weather conditions, information on soil, weather, bioavailable resources, climate, all of this biodata into databases that allow others regionally to grow together. So we're sharing seeds, we're sharing things in an organic community. We're growing organic society, not just, it's not all tech. It's a lot of what's needed is to physically restore the earth and to bring back biodiversity and to heal the soil and to heal the water cycle. And a lot of these conditions we can share with each other. We can understand our bioregions. We can tap into local indigenous knowledge bases, which are so fucking extensive. So many of the solutions are in people, are in indigenous people, are in black and brown communities, are in peoples who don't have power in the society because they don't have access to fucking money, whatever we call it. So we can go from off-grid communities to off-grid society. And we need the system less and less, more and more. And our system grows with every piece. So the best part of meeting people's needs is their creativity is freed up. So we can naturally integrate into a collaborative design database of, like I was saying, open source blueprints for 3D printers, designs for new ideas and inventions that people can network to build on. You can post your idea, and people literally in Bangladesh can find that thing and be like, oh, I have an adaptation. I have a way to improve this. And so we have this Manhattan Project for fucking everything. You could say, oh, I have an idea for a phone case, and you could put it up there, and it could become popular. It could get upvoted.
It's like
And
open sourcing
algorithms could help
everything,
people find
making
it.
things. It's like open sourcing everything as opposed to corporate, intellectual property rights. So we're going against that basically, right? Sharing
It
information
gives
globally through a network.
it gives it gives us the ability to, for everybody in the world, literally everyone in the world, to put their heads together on these things instead of about 12 people in a research and development
Yeah,
lab building it. I mean,
yeah.
to speak to that, most innovations that end up in your fucking cell phone were created by public money in public institutions like universities. So it's this collective serial process of development that's gotten us to where we are today in the first place in every way. Like my very good friends at, I got a shout out at the One Community Global and the Auravana Project. They're designing fucking blueprints for entire communities, for like earthship villages, treehouse villages, or storage container villages, mud villages, whatever it is. They have whole blueprints for them with food, water, energy, waste. And then Auravana Project is designing like building codes for whole civilizations that theoretically people could start tweaking in complex, like Minecraft like design programs to
Hmm.
design the visual, audiovisual sort of rendering of this society or this village. And then people can start building it. We can literally have everyone designing the world that we live in. And
And all
so,
these things that we're talking about, guys, we're gonna link videos to them in the video description, right? We're gonna put links to all these different organizations, so people can check it out for themselves.
yeah,
We
it's not all
should.
hypothetical. I mean, so
It's
speaking
not.
of like the real world, the primary function of the internet should be to bring us together to get us off of the internet. So in this ecosystem of apps, we can
Great
integrate more
point.
social functions like chats, real-time information sharing, like I was saying about our Moneyless Society group. Like there's children out there in third world countries with great ideas that are geniuses, genius kids. Everyone's a genius, truly, but there are those people out there that like they went through some crazy story, some crazy life thing, or they're just brilliant. People like Tesla. There's a great quote by, I can't remember his name, but he's like, I'm not as interested in how big Einstein's brain was. I'm interested in the certainty that millions more people just as smart as him died in sweatshops. And so those
Absolutely.
people could be connected with the people that they need, that have the resources to help them make their ideas come to fruition. Like, you got a difficult student like me. I had a very difficult time in school. Uh, Algorithms like this could analyze my language use and find me the right teacher. People like Arjang and I had to pretty manually connect with each other, even though we are so aligned. We should have platforms that are analyzing our language use beneficiently with secure data that's owned by us, that's not owned by a corporation, that is then connecting people with people who connect. How many people in this world know what a resource-based economy is? Not that many. I asked ChatGPT how many moneyless activists there are. It was like, dude, there's not many. There's only a few. Here's a small list. There's more of us out there than we think, but we can't find each other because we don't have a good system. And a good system would connect us automatically. And it would add more until it creates a circle, more of us. So it takes Arjang and I and adds Amanda, it adds Matt, it adds Jeff Cates, and it creates a circle. And then that circle scales out into another circle. And then it analyzes each circle as an individual. And it connects others like it to that circle. So we keep scaling to the communal, locally, county, state, and world level. And this is like basically how this sounds like fantasy to people, but in Rojava, in Syria, in parts of, I believe it's in Syria, uh, there is an anarchist community. It exists today. It's a large territory, complex society. People are going to work. They got stop signs. They're driving cars, and they don't have bosses. They don't have government. They don't have the centralized control systems that we have today. Most of them don't use money in the way that we think. They have a cooperative economy they're doing a lot of this in a very comparatively poor country. They don't have AI. They don't have automation, but they're doing it. And many experiments like this in human history have existed, like the Spanish anarchist experiments, or the Zapatistas,
Yep.
or the majority of human history who fucking lived like this. This is how we lived without all this technology. And for people to see this technology and only see it as a weapon is just very narrow-minded. We can create a decentralized, leaderless, emergent, perpetually evolving system that can't be taken out because it has no source. It's everywhere. That helps us organize at all levels, meet our physical and social needs. It gives us the power to synchronize direct action. So we really can do some good. We really can do some damage. Like, if everybody who worked at Chili's was on this app and was like, okay, let's shut down Chili's in our city, like every Chili's, you could do that. And that would actually send a real message instead of a group of people walking out, or something like that. That allows us to organize the networks of support to feed ourselves, and the ability to actually integrate and strategically orient actions to do something like a general strike, which is historically the most effective way to stop capital. To say, we, the working people, the people whose hands turn the wheels of this system, without us, you have nothing. All the managers in the world could go to work, doesn't matter. We don't need them. Like the Spanish Civil War, they just said, okay, no white collar workers. We don't need you. We can network and synchronize disruption. We can integrate food production into every part of our life. We can create social networks that are more fun and robust and vibrant to be with. We can share everything we need in a giant feedback loop of people improving each other's lives, showing alternatives. Each community becomes a place that we can go there with a fucking camera and say, look how nice it is, look how beautiful it is, look, we're growing flowers that we can turn into metal, and we have the wind and the sun are our source of energy, and we sit together around a fucking fireplace and talk to each other. We're not all stressed out. We've worked out our labor system so where each of us works a few hours a week to meet our basic needs, and we are free to fucking explore and do whatever we want. That's very possible. It's crazy to me that we don't have that. And that's that this process, this feedback loop, all this technology, all these things coming together to create a true system, not a heap, not a group of disconnected activists and people fighting for this issue and people fighting for this. As the great Kwame Ture said, act, activists fight issues. Revolutionaries are not concerned with issues. They're concerned with the system. And the system that
Yep.
we need to concern ourselves with is the system that we build, the system that we can create to take us from groupthink, from the conformity of the mass mind, to true collective
Collective
intelligence.
intelligence. Yes. Absolutely. There should be no fragmentation. There should be unification. And like you said, I mean, all the things you talked about feeds into what I was talking about. A leaderless movement. Everyone's their own leader. Proper communication. and sharing of values. I mean, unified values, and everyone being on the same page when it comes to their education. And guess what? The apps that you talk about, allowing people to communicate properly, will allow for that to take place. Sharing of resources, cooperative communities. Yes, there we go again. Another movement that another another aspect and attribute of a movement that can actually make it work, which is again demarketized behavior. Yeah, like starving the beast. Going against the mechanisms of capitalism. So all those things we talk about um, can truly become reality. So
It
yeah,
will become obvious. It will become. There's no argument needed when this starts to take off, and when it really starts, it will pick up faster than any of us can imagine.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
We just got to do it.
we got to
And we
do
got to
it.
come together. We got to stop arguing and use these social media platforms, these amazing technologies that we have to fight the perverse incentives of likes and clout and all that stuff. To just find people and click and organize and join groups like us. Come together. If you are a programmer and you know how to design these things, or you're a builder, or you're a grower, or you're a designer, whatever, join Moneyless Society. Like, come together and work with us. Come into our structure, our sociocratic, leaderless structure, and help us build this, because we're the ones we've been waiting for. There's no them. There's no the fucking system isn't going to stop, isn't going to undo itself. We have to do this. And it's not an obligation. It's like, this is my social medicine, is interacting with these people in this group, this community, that we're not a
And let's make
fucking
a point.
business.
Let's make a point to all those people who say that, oh, moneyless society is just like another cult. That's another group. It's another group. Well, are we trying to get rid of tribalism and try to get rid of in-group out-groupism? Well, the answer is sorry, man. We got to start somewhere. And moneyless society is simply, it's a term to bring people in, bring them in, and unify them under a set value system and a set level of education, and prioritize them in the right direction. And we need a label to bring people together. But ultimately, I'm sure you agree with me, if Moneyless Society is able to achieve the things it's trying to achieve, the word Moneyless Society means nothing, right? It's going to include everybody. It's just the entire human family. We're not here to preserve any establishment and be like, look, this is our group, you have your group. We have our members, you have your members. No, there's no such thing as that. In the end, we get rid of all that crap, because we want to make sure the critics out there who talk all this crap, they understand what we're trying to do here. When you remove all that, this group identification, right? We don't want any more group identification. There's only one group in the end, the human family. That's all that ever existed, and that's all that ever will exist. In the interim, we're living in this very chaotic time where everyone associates with a group or whatever. That's ultimately it's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be tribalistic here, you know?
Most native tribes, most native peoples, the name for their people, like the Cherokee or whatever, it usually just means the people. And so we're trying to create a society that is so obviates these premises and these structures and systems that it just becomes life. There's no deviation for
Yeah,
anything else. It just dissolves into everyday being.
absolutely. I mean, in the animal kingdom, when there's abundance, like the bonobos, right? When there's true abundance among the bonobos, they're happy. They live together. There's no in group out groupism. Everyone's happy. They're, for the most part, they have fun. They chill together. Oh, look at the other side. Chimpanzees live in scarcity. They have to divide themselves up, create hierarchy, be ruthless and vicious with one another. And so, I mean, if monkeys can do it in an abundant setting, why can't humans do it? I mean, humans can easily do it. We're much more intelligent. We're much more socially primed. So, it's about time we do that. And, it's just sad that millions of potential Einsteins have to let go of their creative aspirations because they have to meet their economic survival. So
The
it,
basic needs. I mean, it's
yeah,
embarrassing that it takes this much to just meet our basic needs. If we come together, we can do so much better. And that's just the final point. Just fucking do it. Let's do it. Let's fucking do it. Let's stop talking about it. Let's start doing it.
yeah, yeah. Takes a long time, but we're taking the right steps, step by step, slowly, surely. We'll get there. We'll get
Well,
there.
as Rabindranath Tagore said, he who plants trees, knowing he may never stand in their shade, has started to understand the meaning of life. So we may never see
Absolutely,
this finished world, but there's only now. Now is the only moment. There's no other moment. This is it. This is the whole
absolutely.
world in this moment right now. And there's so much that we can do. And I'm excited by it. I'm not doomed. And when I see bad news, I say, okay, that's going to push more people into us. If we have a system, and if you think, oh, people are sheep, they're just followers, okay, let's build them some fucking stables. Like, and those people who are followers, when they see people walking in this direction, they will follow, and that will become a benefit.
Absolutely.
All right. A true community of people that I just love. I love these people. I love Arjang. I love the work that we do. I love being able to connect with the people that are like us. And that's what every person that's found our group has said, like, thank you. You're out there. I thought I was alone. I thought I was a freak. I thought I was the only one. But no, there's so many of us. And if you're watching this and this touches you somewhere, join us. Like, let's join the fucking party, because that's what it is. That's what it can be.
Absolutely,
All
man.
right.
Yeah.
Where's Rock? Hang on.
Great points made. I mean, I think we nailed it there, and it's a wrap. Um, yeah, absolutely. People watching the video, please join us and help us arrive at our goals. And yeah, GoFundMe campaign for this guy to have a proper, I guess, I don't know, cat shampoo or something. I don't know what we were trying to do with him, but yeah, that's the goal, man.
All right.